yesterday I was driving it, and a check engine light came on. I'm like, what is going
Yeah,
on here?
seriously.
And and I wasn't really paying attention. But I did the other day. I noticed that the radiator fan was staying on like 30 seconds after I shut the car off. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And and then I heard it like running as I was driving. Like, what's going on? So I did real quick Google search. Come to find out, very, very common $23 part that breaks on these GM cars
Oh my
all the
God.
time because of where it is.
Oh man.
However, watching videos of how to get to the stupid thing,
Oh God. What do you got to take apart?
well, one dude actually took the whole entire front grill off,
Damn.
which that's a big hard no. Uh, I would,
I've done
um,
that before.
yeah, I've seen the pictures on
Oh yeah.
on your caravan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big hard no.
Uh,
So it literally resides between the exhaust manifold and the dipstick. It's like literally wedged right in between that. But wiring harnesses pass right in front of it.
of course.
So, and then the wiring harnesses, because they are going to your spark plugs, they're going to a couple of different relays and all these other things. It's full of tension. So you can't just like pull it out of the way. They're like, after doing this several times, the last time where I was doing this video, I got it down to 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't have to pull apart the car to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
He did have to pull apart a few things and unscrew a few things, which, I'm totally up for that. But if he's done it several times and has got it down to 30 minutes
Yep.
with all of the right tools,
Right.
and I ain't got the right tools
Right.
and don't feel like going out and buying a bunch of extra tools just to change one stupid $23
Yeah.
part. So guess what I'll be doing today? That. So I've carved
Oh.
out 2 hours instead of the half hour that he had
Okay.
to
Yeah. Okay. So you got to start a timer. I want to know how long it actually takes. That would be great.
I am most certainly going to follow the one guy who kind of got it down.
Yeah.
The only thing that I don't have that he has is, so it's got one of these, like, whatever engineer decided that this was the thing that you were supposed to do should just, I mean, clearly engineers who design motors and how to, like, fit all of this new technology into an engine bay
Mm-hmm.
has never actually worked on a car before,
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's some of these things are so physically impossible to get to.
Right.
And for some reason, sure enough, these are the jackasses that want to just say, hey, let's do that.
Oh
Like
yeah.
trying to get to going through the wheel well
Yes. That's what I was
to
thinking.
get to a light.
Yep.
Well, you open up the hood, you can see the top of the light right there. How hard was it to just do it the old fashioned way of being able to,
Well, remember,
you
like
know,
on old cars, you could like get in the engine bay with the motor, and work on
oh
it.
yeah. I mean,
You could sit
probably
on the
one of the,
fender as a bench
yeah, exactly.
with your
One of the
feet
best
inside.
cars, I'll tell you, one of the best cars that I'd ever worked on. Late 60s, early 70s Triumph Spitfire, or a GT6 is what it was, but basically a Spitfire.
Yeah.
You lift the entire hood open and the tire is just sitting right there, nothing over the top of it, and you can sit on the tire and work on the car,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
it
I
was
see
it
what
was
you're
like
saying.
perfectly comfortable. It was like
It also had like
it was
67 horsepower, right? So,
you know, I mean, we ain't saying that was a fast car or anything, but it was an easy car to work on. And
well,
then
it
this
was
one,
British. You had to work on it a lot.
yes, this I know.
They
All too.
designed it because they knew, oh, people are going to be in here a lot.
Yeah. My favorite my favorite time of ever working on a car was my TR7, and that one was just plagued with problem after problem after problem.
I think they all
But
are. Yeah.
yeah,
It
but
doesn't stop people from owning them.
in 19, the late 70s, early 80s, 82 I think was when Triumph and basically the British version of General Motors, it was British Leyland.
Hmm.
Once that had gone out of business and it owned, like, Rover and Jaguar and MG, it had all the marquees under it, including Triumph. But there was like labor strikes and all this other stuff, as one does in Europe on like a biannual basis. And I'm working on this car after I've already had a couple of like electrical fires. And as I'm like pulling some like the carpets out and stuff, and because I'm trying to trace a wiring harness, there's a red tag on one of the wiring harnesses that I'm trying to uncover and find out where it leads to and all this other stuff. And it's face down. And I flip over the red tag, and it only had one word on it: rejected. And here it is in the car
Yes.
that I've had multiple like electrical fires in.
Oh my God. That I've had multiple.
What?
Like the first one was not the red flag warning.
Well, I mean, the first one, it didn't. It was a ignition switch wiring harness, so that was kind of a direct lead through the firewall into the ignition, into the starter area. So that one was actually a little bit easier for me to trace down. And then the second one was just a miswire or a misground on my part. And then the third one was the one that led me to this whole entire thing is shit.
Oh my gosh, dude, brutal, rejected.
Rejected.
You know, how'd you feel?
Rejected.
Oh man, that's crazy. That reminds me of like the old. I was doing some research on what they call it, like the Toyota way, the Kanban process, which is like the way that they ran their assembly lines was that anybody on the line could stop the process at any time to fix the problem that needed to be fixed right then. Basically, completely opposite of how American car companies did it, which was like keep the line moving no matter what, right? And so like error after error would just snowball into these crazy things where the fenders were falling off the cars as they were driving them off the line because somebody didn't get the bolts in because the threads weren't tapped in the thing correctly, but the line couldn't stop, right? Like people were seriously penalized if the line stopped. So the Toyota process was, and it's like world renowned, right? Because of, Toyotas have this world renowned reliability, right? And this basically came out of this process that they designed, which was like, it doesn't matter what rank you are, it doesn't matter what part of the line you're on, it doesn't matter. And there was this card system, and that's what the Kanban thing is. It's like there was this little card that would follow a car through the entire process, and people would mark things on these cards, and it was basically like making sure that everything actually happened along the way. And anybody could stop that line if anything was wrong, and no matter how long it took to fix, it was better than letting it get to the line and then trying to fix it later, because everybody knows that when that happens, like there's so many things you forget about. You're not going to fix it later, right? So this whole like just in time process where it's like when something needs to be addressed, you address it just in time. And if a part needs to be made to fix a machine, you do it right then. And so it also led to this kind of other outcome, which was Toyota didn't have warehouses full of parts, right? So they made the parts as they needed them for the cars that were on the line, instead of like the American way, which was like have warehouses completely full to the gills of parts. And now you're paying to store these parts, and then you have these huge inventories that you're tracking all the time, and probably tracking incorrectly. So it was pretty interesting. There was a podcast I listened to on this where they basically, like Pontiac they hired Toyota to come out to their Fremont plant out here in California and basically like look at the way that they were running their line, because they were like, how do we compete? We can't compete, right? Toyota's eating our lunch. So they actually hired Toyota to come in and do this. Like it was so culturally different than what the American car makers were used to. And not even just the car makers. Like the car makers, obviously, the people in the leadership saw the value. But the people on the line were like, no one's going to come in here and tell us how to do this, right? And they kind of self-sabotaged. It was a sad story, man. It's just like, because they didn't want to change how they worked. I mean, and the whole time I'm listening to this story, right, I'm thinking about how we do things in architecture.
I was going to say, wow, that sounds like a lot of parallels to what we do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because now you see this lean processes, you see these Six Sigma, there's people like totally drink the Kool-Aid on that kind of stuff too now, and you see it with lean IPD. There definitely is a ton of value there, and it's also like really highly collaborative, right? It's like there's a lot of really interesting ideas that come out of the Japanese culture. And like one of those that I'm thinking of is where in large meetings, the youngest people get to speak first and tell everybody their ideas about how to solve problems so that they're not, I think we've talked about this before on the show, but it was basically in order to not make them feel like they're having to please the bosses by repeating what the bosses say. Bosses is a lame word, but like people higher up in the company, they didn't want them to feel like they were contradicting if they had a different idea, which they were experiencing that. So they changed it to say like, okay, the younger people always get to talk first and get their ideas out, because a lot of times they have good ideas, but they just won't say them because they're contradictory to what somebody higher up the levels already said. So it just goes unsaid, and then but nothing ever gets better, right? So it's kind of in the service of good ideas come from anywhere. Like, so that's just another kind of interesting kind of Japanese cultural thing that has penetrated throughout the business world. And I kind of think about that when I think about architectural, how decisions get made on architectural projects, and how many times young people are not allowed to speak, or their ideas are shot down immediately, rather than kind of fostered through a process.
And even not just the fact that the ideas about like, how to either design the thing, but also even like the process of how to like work.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so entrenched in the way, this is just the way that we've, done things. And, how many times have we said when we're out on a job site or something like that, when you hear a GC or somebody say, yeah, we've been doing this for 25 years. And you're just like,
we do it this way because we do it this way. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's how we've always done it.
And then there's this sense of, hey, there is a different way, new way, a efficient way to do these things. And why not? Let's consider those. I mean, why not become, there are a lot more people out there that have a contributing idea to the work smarter, not harder, kind of ideology.
Yeah, totally.
We just seem to always keep forgetting that is an option.
Yeah.
I was asked in a PM training session, I was asked if, it's just, well, why did you get into architecture? And, I kind of told them the story about me and, the Pontiac Silverdome and all this other stuff. And then, I kind of like wrapped it up with, I was just like, it may sound strange and all, but strangely love it, and I understand that there are some issues and stuff in this particular thing, and I'm willing to stick with it. I think the only the next step, or I think I do a reasonably decent job, but not well enough, is to how do you make it better? How do you change it? How do you improve it? How do you become more efficient? How do you, think about like, go back to the analogy of Japanese auto industry coming in to try to streamline and improve the U.S. auto industry, and just think about like Americans asked them to do that because they were looking to compete with, the same people that they were asking help from.
Right.
And in a way, we need to do the same thing, right? Because you've talked about, like we've talked about, and you've talked about the incredibly low percentage of projects that are actually done by architects. So what is making those projects, the other percent of the percentage of buildings that are getting done, what are making them more efficient? I mean, because there's a disconnect between those, because they're ugly, but they are profitable because they're getting done. So where is the middle ground where you can be valuable to those kind of projects as an architect, elevate the design of those, but also not become this big like cog in the middle of that, efficiency, to actually become more productive, but then also be able to affect higher percentage of buildings that are being constructed.
Yeah, and it makes me think of, I went on some tours of some prefab facilities out in Phoenix where there's tons and tons of prefab going on. I mean, it has a lot to do with local legislation, stuff that allows it to happen there more conducively than in places like California, because a lot of the work that's being produced there is getting shipped to other states, actually, not necessarily put up there. So it comes down to logistics and things like that, right? But prefab is taken off as if, the writing is on the wall. And what the reason I bring it up is because, this lean IPD, this Kanban, this just in time, all of this is like kind of points back to a common theme of this highly collaborative process where everyone's at the table all the time. And, you've heard of BIM big rooms and things like that, where on a project, people are solving problems in real time with all the trades at the table or all of the consultants at the table, depending on what phase of the project you're in, and solving it right then and there. Everybody has an agreement. They do it right then and there. And that just becomes kind of like a new way of working. And what's interesting to me is to see these construction companies who've kind of spun off these prefab units or these new startups that are prefab. And it was interesting for me to walk in there as an architect and say, like, we're interested in learning about your process, which is kind of what we're talking about right now, right? Like reaching out and learning from other ones. And they're like, you're the first people to come here, and we're so excited to kind of talk about these crossover opportunities. And I was kind of like blown away because I felt like we're late to the game, right? I don't feel like we're the first ones there. And by going there and just trying to, make a connection and learn about their process and their facility and how they're doing things, they're super excited by that prospect. They're super excited that they're going to have the opportunity to learn something from us and that they're going to be able to show us something, a different way of doing things than we're used to. I was pretty blown away by that. But then, like, just seeing how those facilities work as like this, it is kind of a production line, but it also is also like there's certain things that they don't do that we do all the time, like any kind of design thinking, right? Like they're very much production oriented. They're very much like trying to find the efficiencies. And to me, like, architects kind of fit into this in a unique way because they don't have that training and we do. And they're like really accepting of that. They're not saying like, we don't need that. They're saying, yeah, we want to like offer the best solutions, right? And the best solutions are well-designed solutions. They're not just efficient solutions, right? So I found that it was interesting how open they were. And I think it does kind of fit this highly collaborative model, though, if you think about it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We both benefit. They benefit from an improved product. We benefit from improved access to other buildings that are being built. And it's just this, symbiotic relationship that we could foster that for some reason we just decide not to.
Yeah.
It's like, many times when I was doing, and I didn't do a lot, but I did a handful of custom residential houses that were modular.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going up faster, and I, probably sung the praises multiple times on, why I like the process. But what I liked most about it was I would get these like just horrible kind of like comments or faces and whatever from people who were trying to have me convince to them what makes, the house that have just finished designing, what makes that, explain to me why that's not a trailer.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're just not getting it. You're poo-pooing it because of it being built in a factory. It's not 2x4 construction, it's 2x6 construction. It is not, X amount of R value, it is Y amount of R value. It is, all of these different things that actually are far better. And so climate controlled construction is what we were trying to rebrand it, just so that when you kept saying modular, it's just like, well, you mean a trailer, like, or a manufactured home.
Right.
Well, yes, but no.
Right.
It is so much more. It's not leaving your framing exposed to the elements and getting rained on, and then it not fully drying out when you decide to cover it over with your building paper.
Right.
And now you're trapping in moisture and all this other stuff.
Right.
And so from the get-go, it's better constructed. It doesn't mean that it's less designed. It just means it's better constructed.
Yeah,
constructed.
And there are a lot of advantages in that, and there are obviously a lot of disadvantages too, right? Like, it all comes down to logistics. If you can't get the thing to the site, like, that's where you have to start. Can we get a thing to the site? Can we get a crane? Can we make it up this curvy road with switchbacks? What about power lines? Like, all of those kinds of things. What about restrictions on the roads that we have to deal with to even get a thing there? It comes down to all that kind of stuff. Because if you can't do that, you can't do it modularly, right? At all. It just won't,
Exactly.
it won't
Oh
work.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They're
You
yeah.
kind of start in a completely different place. Whereas when you're approaching a project as it's going to be built on the site, like you can do anything, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, it doesn't mean that like it can work anywhere, but it is also, there are tons of advantages, like you're pointing out. Like you can actually run multiple shifts on a project. You can pay living wages to people because they show up to work every day instead of feast or famine, right? Like they're contractors who work on a line of, and they're building modular buildings all the time, and there's job security there, right? They're not worrying about the weather, like you said.
Yeah.
There's so many things like that. All the tools are there. You know, the company owns all
Yeah.
the tools. They don't
Right.
have to provide their own. They don't have to replace their own tools. They don't have to have insurance on their. It's so there's so many things like that.
And they can quality control, every little bit and piece of it. I mean,
Oh,
one of
the
the fun things.
tolerances are way higher. Yeah.
One of my favorite things is I've got a friend from high school who she owns a finished painting company, and she's always posting these just amazingly horrid framing horrors. Custom frame jobs that are just really bad. The alignment's bad, the finishing is bad, the trimming is bad. All of this stuff is just bad, and it's because you're trying to like rush through things, and you're not really trying to quality control. You're trying to meet a deadline. Well,
Right.
I had a 2,600 square foot house that was built in 10 days in the factory, and it was shipped out on site. And the biggest challenge that we dealt with on that one, it was the Department of Transportation from
Yeah.
the factory in Georgia
Right.
down to Florida, and what was the requirements between the two states.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
And
yeah.
and then the permitting process, because most people didn't understand the permitting process. So I had to get it permitted through the Department of Transportation in Florida rather than the building department.
That's
And
crazy. Yeah.
it's those like weird little other factors in stuff like that.
Or getting your
yeah.
building officials to go to Georgia to do inspections inside of a facility, right? So there are a lot of, you have to think about things very differently.
Yeah.
And the tolerances, like I said, they're higher. They're just consistent, right? They
Yes,
probably are
exactly.
higher, but they are very consistent because it's all about making things as
you got
repeatable
one
as
guy.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have one guy doing the same thing over and over and over again, but
Yeah.
has gotten to the point where he's got this craft and
Expertise.
he's
yeah.
not reinventing the wheel every time that he does it. It's not, he's doing this over and over again. So it's a lot easier for him to do his own quality control.
Yeah. It's
And that
interesting.
goes for the framer, the insulation guy, the window guy. This is what I do, and I'm going to do 50 of these a day. I'm going to do 100 of these a day. It's auto assembly mentality, but for the construction.